What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mortar Stardom Show. It's Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Last week, we technically had a week off as we joined the wonderful people over at Front Stretch for their happy hour. It was a fun happy hour of NASCAR conversation. Got to have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs as well, but we're back here on the Motor Stardom Show for a little brief episode. Nothing crazy planned today, but we're definitely going to talk about some things that have happened recently in the NASCAR world, such as a weekend at New Hampshire that saw some feuds on the racetrack between teammates. We saw a record tied in the Craftsman Truck Series. We got some crew chief news that have happened today of a crew chief with one team going to another team for next year. Veteran driver going to be looking for a new crew chief next year at a point in his career where he certainly needs things to turn around. So hello, RJ Starsvik running solo today here on this Tuesday night. Next week, looking to hopefully have the gang back together and some wonderful guests as we approach Charlotte weekend, which I will be in attendance for. It's going to be great to be back at the racetrack. I was at Charlotte a few years ago. Now going to get to go back there for Roval weekend, for my first Roval weekend. Really excited about that. If anybody's there, please say what's up. I will be there all week, so looking forward to that. Going to be 3 great races there, right? Truck Series there for the first time, Xfinity Series and Cup Series there like normal. So let's start hot. Let's start with the talk of the weekend, where there wasn't much talk after the race as from the drivers, but at least from inside the cockpit, there was some stuff going on between Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs. They raced each other for multiple laps. Denny Hamlin was struggling to get by the 54 car and was upset with how hard it was to pass him. I believe Christopher Bell as well was voicing his frustration of how hard it was to pass the 54 car. But Denny Hamlin was really upset, and so upset that he drove into him in the corner.
Right there. I think we should show this on camera for the next few laps, because I'm not sure they're done. I think they're very frustrated with one another. Oh, here we go. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Yes, sir. Gibbs goes around. Yellow zone.
So sends him into the corner, something that probably nobody really saw coming. I mean, we've seen Hamlin run into people. We've seen him retaliate against people sometimes as well. But I mean, even with Ross Chastain, there was no like flat out dumping, when they were racing, kind of just roughing up. And whether he meant to totally spin around Ty Gibbs here, I don't know. I mean, I feel like when you kind of drive up in the left corner panel of somebody at that part of the racetrack, that's probably what you're intending on doing. But obviously the craziest part here is, I mean, 2 crazy parts, and it has both to do with Joe Gibbs Racing. You got 2 teammates racing right here with Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs. Look who's right behind him, Christopher Bell, who, I mean, comes inches away, probably feet away from being caught up in this mess. I mean, imagine the discourse from the team. Imagine the meetings this week if that were to take place, because it's one thing to right now you wreck the 54, right? It's the only car that's not in the playoffs for Joe Gibbs Racing, but still, I mean, not something you want to be doing, especially when it's your team owner's grandson. But if he took out the 20 car, that would have probably been an unbearable meeting for Denny Hamlin, for that 11 team, because not only did you wipe out the 54 car, a teammate, you took out somebody that is also in the playoffs for your organization. Now, from Denny Hamlin's side, obviously this quote that put up just a little bit ago, he said before this, hey, does Ty Gibbs realize we're racing for an effing championship? And then after he wrecked him, he, nothing on the radio saying, I didn't mean it. And sorry, he was acting like he basically meant to do it. And he said, are they afraid to talk to him? That's what I feel like. They're scared of him. Now, they asked Hamlin questions after the race, and he didn't really give any answers. No direct answers, just, hey, unfortunately the contact was made. Definitely good PR answers by those guys, probably whether it was team orders or not. Definitely good PR answers from them. Ty Gibbs did the Kyle Busch interview in the Care Center, saying he is really looking forward to next weekend's race at Kansas. Do I think there'd be any sort of retaliation? I mean, I don't think so, right? Joe Gibbs comes out, or they interview him right after the race, and he says, he wants to let the drivers handle this. We'll see how they handle it. I don't think that's totally the case. I highly doubt there's like a boys have at it kind of thing. Now, if the rare, possibility that maybe, hey, Ty Gibbs is Joe Gibbs' grandson, so he's just like, all right, Ty, go get Denny. It's fair game now. I seriously don't think that's the case. I think Joe values certainly all of his race cars in the fight for the championship. just signed Denny Hamlin to a contract extension with the team, right? So it's not like you're in that kind of deal, right? Where it's Kyle Busch versus Ty Gibbs a few years ago. Not that that really was a thing, but I certainly don't think anything's going to come of this. Now, will Ty Gibbs forget maybe down the road if Hamlin's racing for his own team? I don't know. Is there still going to be bad blood on the racetrack at Kansas? I don't know, right? The 54 team's only gotten better this season, so they have been running towards the front, so they have been running with the 11 car. So we'll find out if anything does happen. I don't personally think anything will come of it, but you never know. I think this is kind of a thing that just washes over, and we're talking about it so much because it is teammates, right? But we've also really had nothing this year. I mean, we've had no run-ins, no feuds. I mean, the only big thing we've really had is people just being mad at Carson Hocevar, which, certainly happens. So, we'll see what comes out of it. We'll watch it one more time here. I mean, just, Hamlin was certainly upset. They got the live in-car cameras here, and you can see, Hamlin driving in the corner. You just see him wash up until he just gets into it. But man, if he collected that 20 car, that would have been rough. But nonetheless, Hamlin still is able to come home with a decent finish and a lot of playoff points gathered up, over the regular season. He sits there plus 27. But race one, right, of a round where now we go to Kansas, and then we ended at the Charlotte Roval. So, next week, not a lot of unpredictables that are probably going to happen, but Charlotte Roval, certainly a lot of unpredictables. So, notable teams that kind of had themselves in a bind here. That gap is big at the cut line, especially after one race, right? We know that the gap, in the opening race, the playoffs was pretty close. Going into the playoffs was pretty close, but now we kind of have solidified our top 8 guys and our bottom guys down there. Surprising race from 23-11 after an amazing first round that they had. Bubba Wallace, terrible race in New Hampshire. Now he's minus 27. Tyler Reddick, not much better at all. Minus 23, and we know Tyler Reddick doesn't have those playoff points to kind of, have as a cushion. He didn't get any, wins during the regular season, had to point himself in. Probably only had a few playoff points, right, from stage victories. Austin Cindric, not the day that they would have wanted, nor Ross Chastain either. Then we look above the cut line, right? I mean, these guys are going to have to be dethroned, taken down, right? I think it's going to take a winner below this cut line to really make a difference here, because Chase Briscoe, that 19 team, they've been on rails, right? Didn't have all the playoff points, but to start the playoffs and to finish the regular season, they've had a lot of speed. Chase Elliott, again, just kind of consistently getting those decent finishes, doing what they need to do to continue and advance. I think they still are going to be a lock to advance to the next round, especially when we have the Roval coming up. We know he hasn't run a road course in the next gen, but he's still going to be good there, as well as Kansas. I think Hendrick will be fast at Kansas. Joey Logano, we know he peaks this time of year. Great race at New Hampshire, right? Didn't get the win. Obviously, his teammate does, Ryan Blaney, but still an amazing points day. He gets plus 24 on the cut. Denny Hamlin, we just talked about him. Runs in with his teammate, doesn't have the race that he'd wanted for maybe his track record at New Hampshire. Same for Bell as well. So they're both plus 27, plus 29. Now those 3 drivers that are really set. Ryan Blaney wins the race. He's moved on to the next round. I think he's certainly a Final Four candidate. William Byron, my championship pick. Quietly moving his way along these playoffs, and so many playoff points now. He's plus 47 above the cut. Same for Kyle Larson, plus 41 above the cut. So those guys are basically virtual locks. Nothing is impossible in the playoffs, but certainly a lot of storylines to follow going into Kansas. I mean, who do I think will be fast? I mean, Ross Chastain certainly has a chance, right? He's been fast at Kansas before. I think Chevys this time of year are definitely really fast at Kansas, so I think he's one to watch. Tyler Reddick, right? This is his race to make something happen. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. This is a fall Kansas race, has literally been 23-11's wheelhouse for the past, 3-4 years. So I think they're certainly going to be hard to beat. Anybody in this top 12, really, maybe besides Austin Cindric, could have a top 5 day at Kansas. It's just going to be about who rolls off well and who does good in that 20-minute practice and who makes the right adjustments during the race to be able to compete. So keeping it in New Hampshire, we'll throw a little congratulations to Corey Heim. 9 wins this season. Absolutely incredible feat. He ties Greg Biffle, who set that record in 1999, by the way. It's been that long since somebody's been able to overcome that record. He ties the record for most wins in a Craftsman Truck Series season. You know what's different about this and Greg Biffle's is the 1999 season is over and the 2025 season is not. Corey Heim still has a long way to go. They still have the race at Charlotte Roval coming up, and they still have to finish the season and the playoffs. And I don't think this is the last win Corey Heim is going to get. So I think it's definitely inevitable that he breaks that record. And, what a fitting year to do so with how dominant he's been, with how dominant that team has been. We know he's not going to return to that team next year because he's going to move on to bigger things. Hopefully that'll be a full-time Xfinity ride. We all hope it's full-time Cup ride, but we'll just see how things pan out, for Corey. But definitely big shout out for him for getting that victory. As we can see, it is Heim time. Corey Heim is on the watch, and it is Heim time. So we'll take some water there. Move on. The NASCAR 25 game is coming out, guys. Hope everybody's excited. I literally bought a next-gen Xbox sitting right next to me just for this game. I didn't install Madden. I'm really bad at it so far. I'm really not liking it. But really excited for this game to come out. People have been excited about it for a long time. We got, iRacing as the main developers behind this game, and we know how fun iRacing is, how realistic it is. Shout out to Venom Truck Series. We'll be hopping on there and racing Bristol after this show, as I always do on Tuesday nights. But we're going to look at a little clip here. Wow. Well, Alfredo taking us through some NASCAR 25 gameplay here.
I had some smoke coming off of my tires out there.
As he's here racing the Xfinity Series at Homestead.
That's the roof can.
Which I thought looked great.
There we go.
Track looks great. Cars look great.
This is like I'm watching film.
I certainly love the way the AI is moving, right? Different lanes on the racetrack. Look at how the top side is working compared to the bottom. Get the in-car camera looking just like iRacing. And then we kind of convert over here to Richmond, which infamously, apparently, according to a lot of people, is the worst track in every NASCAR game. Honestly, I might have to agree with that. I don't remember ever having a really fun time at Richmond.
It feels so realistic.
iRacing is not too bad.
They always say watch
But you see racing the Cup cars here, which,
See if I can
we're going to have the Cup cars, Xfinity cars, Truck Series, and ARCA all in NASCAR 25. And we'll see if, just like iRacing, the Cup cars are worse to drive. So I'm excited to see how the Xfinity cars drive in this game. The track list got put out recently as well. Going to be a lot of fun. I know everybody's really excited about this.
This is like I'm watching film.
I love NASCAR gaming. I've played every NASCAR game that's come out. The most fun I ever had on a game as of recent was the NASCAR 15 games, right? NASCAR 14, 15, the Duesenberry Martin boys that put out those. So that was a lot of fun. So really looking forward to that. And before we get into some of the recent news, posted up a little Q&A for you guys. So had you guys send in some questions right before the show that we can answer, kind of related to silly season. And you guys are always wanting to know about, not the most obvious things, right? But the teams around the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, mid-pack, that's what I love to provide on Motor Stardom, right? Is coverage of everybody, right? Not just the top. So, for example, here, Cookie Monster 91486. What does Haas switching to Chevy do for RSS Racing Xfinity Series? This is a good question. This is a complex question because, what's going on in the Xfinity Series is interesting, right? Because Haas factory team's moving to Chevrolet, as it states in this question. Now that means the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. Ford doesn't have much in the Xfinity Series at all. Haas was really, the only team. You look back 10 years ago, we had Roush, right? We had Haas when they joined in. We had Penske, we had at least one Team Penske entry. We don't have those anymore. RSS switched over and they kind of aligned with Haas, right? So they were able to get better race cars, at least for Ryan Sieg in that 39. We have AM Racing, who, drives the 25 or, fields the 25 now for Harrison Burton. They fielded a second entry at Gateway. So that was, interesting to see. We'll see, if that kind of leads anywhere. But, as Christian suggested here in the chat, does RSS stay with Ford and become a leading Ford team? And who is the leading Ford team? If we're basing it off of where everybody's at in the point standings, right? The leading Ford team that's not Haas would be AM Racing, right? With the great season they've had with Harrison Burton, right? Does he return next year? Does AM go to 2 cars next year? What does Ford do as far as the resources here in the Xfinity Series? Because this is something you have to care about, right? You can't ignore this problem of not having a top Ford team in a developmental series, right? Because when you look at the Truck Series, what does Ford even have to offer there, right? So, there's no really Ford pipeline. And, you can beg to, Ford's kind of played the lines of where you look at their teams, right? Ryan Blaney did come up the pipeline. Joey Logano, they got from Toyota a long time ago, and Austin Cindric. We know Penske has their guys still for, could even be the next decade, right? Depending on how long Joey Logano goes. Wood Brothers are getting Josh Berry. I think they'll have him for a while. Front Row Motorsports, we don't know what they're going to look like. So, there's certainly a lot of continuity at Ford. There's certainly a lot of stability, right? Besides Front Row Motorsports. But having a developmental system matters. And while a lot of people nag on Toyota for having too many, right? It's at least something, right? They at least have a selection of drivers, right? Ford has to go out there and fish for people. They have to go out there and offer people deals, find people from other manufacturers like they may have done with Carson Quapple, right? To bring him over to Penske. Whether it's true or not, that's the things that they have to do to get drivers. Is it easier to do it that way? Or is it easier to, put some money, put some effort into a developmental system like TRD, like Chevrolet has with all of their programs in the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, right? The Hendrick pipeline that HMS is kind of, creating. We'll see what that means. And I like this point by Nathan in the chat about, okay, yeah, FRM as Ford and FRM and ThorSport. I don't really, ThorSport, they switch around all the time. And ThorSport's kind of proven to be not really like, hey, we're sending you up. ThorSport seems to be a place where you go to ThorSport and you're probably going to be there for a while. Jake Garcia might have bigger aspirations because he's younger, but right, Matt Crafton's retiring. Ben Rhodes is going to be there for a while. Ty Majeski, even though he won a championship, doesn't seem like he's moving up anytime soon. He's going back full-time racing. FRM is certainly different, though. I like the FRM mention. Chandler Smith, I think, is a year-to-year guy, so I don't know if he's really in that Ford pipeline. But somebody that is in that Ford pipeline, I would have to believe is Lane Riggs. I think that's certainly their guy there. But, right, is it more important to have Xfinity or trucks? It seems like FRM has taken the route of like, okay, we just want trucks and Cup, right? Because what was Todd Gilliland's route? It was trucks to Cup. So, is that what they're following here? Is Penske just sticking with Cup and, they not going to worry about developing anybody in the Xfinity Series for another few years because they know their lineup is set? That could also be a possibility. So we'll just have to see. But I think this is really intriguing. And I think it's interesting to see how the mighty, right, have fallen as far as Ford in the Xfinity Series with Stewart-Haas Racing, with Penske before, with Roush before. And now you basically got nothing in the Xfinity Series as far as Ford goes. So really nice looking cars as well. Really nice sounding cars, that's for sure. So hopefully they are able to, stick around and find something. We'll look at some other questions here. What do we got next? I don't know what's next. Who will be Rowdy's crew chief next season? So this kind of segues into one of the news announcements that came out today. Randall Burnett is not returning to the number 8 box of Kyle Busch. That was kind of rumored over the last few weeks, and now it's confirmed where he is going. He's going to Trackhouse. He's going to be Connor Zilich's crew chief. It's very interesting. We knew that, obviously Zilich and Lindley in the Xfinity Series have been fantastic, but that guy's going to stay over at Junior Motorsports, and that guy isn't Connor Zilich is going to be moving over to Trackhouse. So Trackhouse, instead of, we know they've used Darian Grubb for their, Project 91 car. They end up grabbing a new crew chief from Richard Childress Racing, which is a lot of discourse today. It's brought out a lot of thoughts in some people of what Kyle Busch's last 2 years have been. A lot of people are passing the blame to Randall Burnett. A lot of people are passing the blame to Richard Childress. Some people are passing the blame to Kyle Busch. Some people are passing the blame to all three, saying that, Kyle Busch is a little washed per se. Richard Childress Racing is also washed. And Randall Burnett is not great. Now, obviously, Randall Burnett has, won in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's proven to be at least a Cup Series crew chief, I believe. I don't think he's totally the issue over there at Richard Childress Racing. And I wouldn't assume to him to be the issue if he gets an offer here with Trackhouse to crew chief, right? One of NASCAR's, if not the top prospect. I mean, this is a big opportunity and a big offer. There's a lot of great crew chiefs that are penciled in, right? And they're not going to get the opportunity because they're with their team and their driver. But I still think, as far as getting an offer and an opportunity to go to an organization with a driver that could just make waves, right? Could win championships in his career, as long as they're able to, produce and he keeps that job. Big opportunity for Randall Burnett, and definitely congratulations to him for getting that opportunity. But let's switch to what this question is implying: is who will be Rowdy's crew chief next season. Christian says he hopes it's Rodney Childers. I think that'd be a lot of fun, right? It'd kind of be, with all due respect, the unks of the sport, creating a duo to go out there, and kick some ass. So I think if anybody's going to bring the best out of Kyle Busch, I think it would be Rodney Childers. If anybody's going to bring the best out of Richard Childress Racing, right? Old school guy, I think it could be Rodney Childers. So, is that something that's on the table? Is that something that RCR is considering? Was this a move where RCR wanted to really keep Randall Burnett, or were they already kind of looking for the next person to come in there for the 8 car? Was Kyle Busch looking for the next person to come in there for the 8 car? But I think RCR is just looking for anything to turn that organization around. We know Kyle Busch signed a contract extension. He'll be back there next year. Not a lot of open seats in the Cup Series anyway, so where else are you going to go? He decides to keep riding it out at Richard Childress Racing. And what we found out in some graphics that came out, I believe, on Motorsport or somewhere, he's getting paid. I think he's the highest paid driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I think he's taking that and he's running with it. And maybe they'll get with Rodney Childers next year, and that'll be the new crew chief. I certainly think that would be a very intriguing pairing. Let's bring up the next question here. What do we got? What will the colleague Ram team's driver lineup look like for 2026? This is also an intriguing one. We know that Daniel Dye is probably going to be in one of the trucks. A lot of names have been passed around the NASCAR rumor mill. A lot of people have said Tony Breininger. A lot of people have said Cletus McFarland. A lot of people have said Brendan Queen. A lot of people have said, all sorts of people, right? Brendan Queen certainly is likely. He's got now his second race announced for Colleague Racing. He'll be racing at Kansas. So, I certainly think that's a likely pairing, is Colleague kind of, mellowing in Brendan Queen. And boy, is that a great get. Brendan Queen's been on fire in the Truck Series, was having speed in the Xfinity Series at Bristol, has had speed in his Truck Series races this year for Tricon. So I certainly think bringing in Brendan Queen would be a good move. Now, who else do they fill in that truck? Ram's funding it, right? Seems like they're kind of getting hand-picked people here. Who will they handpick? I really don't know. They like when it's a situation like this and there's not a lot of connections, right? It's hard to make that prediction. Do I see them at least filling out one of those 5 trucks with somebody that's more of celebrity backing based, right? Like a Breininger or McFarland? 100%. And props to them if they do it, right? I wouldn't be mad at you. You got 5 trucks and they're all funded by Ram. You might as well go out there and get one more person that you're able to flex, I guess, a little bit. So we'll see what that driver lineup ends up looking like. But I certainly think it's still, even at this point, pretty unpredictable what it's going to look like. Let's see what we got next here. That is the same question. Okay. Let's see what we got next year. With the rumors of Carson Kvapil aligning with Penske, will he stay in the JRM number 1? This is also interesting. We kind of noted on this earlier in the show. Let's see. Like Christian's little predictions here. Yeah, Daniel Dye, Lawless Allen, Brendan Queen, Tony Breininger, Stephen Parsons. Shout out Stephen Parsons, man. Dude got in basically a 4th Alpha Prime racing car that ended up being under Joey Gase. Little sure negotiation there. And he goes out there, dude's running top 15, qualified top 15, I believe, and then just gets taken out. So big shout out to, I believe, involved with the Carson Kvapil. Something happened. But big shout out to Stephen Parsons. If you got that opportunity, that would be awesome. I know him and his team. Shout out Garrett Miller. They work hard to get him opportunities. But yeah, Carson Kvapil and that whole rumor deal with Penske, right? Where is that at? We don't know. Where things set in stone, we don't know. if Penske went out there and was signed a developmental deal with Carson Kvapil, it's very interesting because that's something Penske hasn't done in a while. As far as like going and outright signing someone to a developmental deal with no like set team for them to go to. Now, has that been a trend recently for organizations or at least manufacturers? Yes, right. In 2311, signed Corey Heim to developmental reserve deal. Hendrick Motorsports is basically out here kind of signing drivers to little developmental reserve deals, right? Corey Day, to running his races in the Xfinity Series. I believe that's one of the questions coming up as well. But yeah, I mean, if Carson Kvapil was obviously signed with Penske, he's not going to return to the JRM number one. That would open up another seat for Junior Motorsports to slot somebody in there. We know Sammy Smith is coming back. I would assume I believe contracted. Justin Allgaier is coming back. We'll leave another seat open for Junior Motorsports to kind of be flexible and see who they'd want to take that seat. We also know Connor Zilic is returning next year. So, going to be interesting to see what they do with that seat. But yes, if Carson Kvapil is so signed with Penske Racing, then he would not return to the number one. Now, where would he go in Penske Racing? Does that mean, they open an Xfinity Series team? We'll have to find out. Same question from Hunter Campbell. We were just talking about that with Colleague Racing. What number, at least is, what numbers do we see them running? I don't know. I would assume they keep, I think there's 5 total numbers that Colleague has run in the Cup Series, being 10, which was advertised for the Truck Series. So technically they could do 10, 16's technically a McNally number. They had 13 in the Cup Series, but that's Thor Sport if they choose to run that again. Technically, they ran a 14 in the Xfinity Series race with Daniel Suarez with SS Greenlight. 31, technically, they could run, right? That was their old Cup Series number. I don't know what else would be fun. I don't know, 3 maybe. Run a 3 or a 6, right? No, that's Norm Benning. You can't run a 6 unless you put Norm Benning in the truck. And that's a different story. But, we'll see. I don't know exactly what numbers they're going to run, but, we'll certainly find out. What do we got next year? Where does Caden Honeycutt go for 2026? Well, Caden Honeycutt signed with Toyota. He's got a deal. He's racing. He's finishing the season out for them in that 52 truck. It's going to be interesting to see if he wins the championship for Stuart Friesen and his team. That would be really fun to see. Definitely Caden Honeycutt's a great guy, great driver. Wishing nothing but the best for him, but it's more than likely he will be at Tricon Racing next year, and he is the guy that will take over for Corey Heim in that number 11 truck. Now, last but not least, I believe that we have, at least from the IG in the last 20 minutes, Corey Day. Let's talk about Corey Day. So, if it's loading, will Corey Day drive the number 9 car full-time for Junior Motorsports 2026? With all the things that's going on with Junior Motorsports drivers, that's certainly not unlikely, but I think there's certainly a possibility Hendrick Motorsports fields a car in the Xfinity Series full time. And then that would go to Corey Day. Now, I would love to see Rajah Caruth get a full-time opportunity in the Xfinity Series, whether that be with Junior Motorsports or Hendrick. But I think it's likely with the amount of races that they ran this year, I could certainly see them doing a full-time entry, or at the very least, they kind of do a Trackhouse-like loan, right? What Trackhouse did for Connor Zilic to the 88. They basically have a HendrickCars.com Junior Motorsports car. I certainly don't think that is out of the picture as well. So again, another, Xfinity Series thing, right? With a lot of possibilities. But anything's possible. Either way, I think Junior Motorsports will have a great lineup next year, and Hendrick will have a lot more, if not a full-time presence in the Xfinity Series next year. All right, guys. So last but not least, last thing we'll talk about on this show before we wrap it up here. I made a slideshow. I made this a few weeks ago. I've talked about it a few times. Talked about it on the Front Stretch show last week about the playoff system. It is rumored that we will get a 3-3-4 playoff system, being we have 3 races, elimination, and then we'll have 4 races to decide a champion at the end. There was also rumored that final 4 could be 6 drivers. Now, the way I look at it is I think it's still stupid. I don't like the playoffs. I actually hate the playoffs. The tides have changed since I was a kid in 2014 when they first came out with it. And I think a lot of people were the same way. I think people were open to it. There were certainly people that were like, oh, whoa, hell no. A lot of old timers, a lot of traditionalists. They probably didn't like it at all. I was a fan with it because I felt like NASCAR was at a time where the playoffs, it was going to matter, right? But there weren't stages back then. And there wasn't a very diverse set of tracks. And it was also every race, it was very consistent with the people up front. There was less parity back in the day, back 10 years ago. But now we've reached a point, and this is always my reasoning, where NASCAR doesn't need the playoffs. I know we don't want the playoffs, but NASCAR felt like they needed the playoffs. We don't need the playoffs. We don't need it. These cars are way too unpredictable. Number one, these races are way too unpredictable. You see how many different winners we have per year. The races are great in itself. When you add the playoffs on top of that, that's just something extra. And the schedule is way too diverse to have a playoff, system in place. I mean, you look at some of these 3 rounds. I mean, you look at last year, I believe it was the opening or the second round, absolutely ridiculous. We got Talladega. We're deciding the final 4 to compete for a championship at Talladega this year, and then doing it again next year. Now, and next year, if they do 4 races in the final 4 races of the year, Talladega is going to be a race that literally decides a champion, which I think is utterly ridiculous. So before I yap on too long of how much I hate the playoffs, let's go right here to what my idea was. I've said this a few times on the show, but the NASCAR Cup Series, I think we need the chase back because I'm a very meet in the middle kind of guy. I realize that there are a lot of people that hate the playoffs that don't want it, but I still realize there are people that want the playoffs, or they're just saying they don't want it, but really, in their minds, they love the chaos, right? They say, oh, we need to go back to full season points. But in their mind, they're like, okay, these playoffs are kind of cool. I know there's some people out there. You know who you are. But it's my proposition. We had the chase back then. We had the chase, 10 race chase, right? It was 10, whether 12 drivers, right? That we had qualify for the chase. So people knew how the chase worked. I think the chase, just traditionally how it was perfect. I think it was awesome. It gave that NASCAR level playoff feeling because we can't be the NFL. We can't be the NBA. The ultimate difference between NASCAR and stick and ball sports is there's millions of other factors in NASCAR, in the NFL, in the MLB, in the NBA. You dig your own grave. You win or you lose the game. And there's nobody else that decides that fate besides the people you are playing. In NASCAR, when you're in the playoffs, you're not just racing your playoff competitors. You're racing everybody else. You're racing track conditions. You're racing, everybody's pit crew. You're racing. There's so many different factors that go into it. We can't, try to be like stick and ball sports. But the closest we can be is a 10 race chase. Now, as you can see here, it's kind of puts the season in a generalization here. 26 race regular season, 10 race chase, right? We keep the clash and the all-star race, top 12. But here's the twist here. Here's where it gets different, right? I say it's a meet in the middle kind of format because what kind of goes hand in hand with this playoff system? That's winning in. I don't think winning in is going away. I think NASCAR loves it so much. And honestly, I think a lot of people like it more so than they do the playoff system. I don't mind it, but I think there should be guidelines with it, right? I think it is cool that, right, you can win a race and benefit yourself towards the end of the season. But here's where we meet in the middle, right? A lot of people get upset when a top 5 in points Martin Truex Jr. misses the playoffs. When Chris Buescher, 2 years in a row, top 12 in points, misses the playoffs. So how do we fix that? I think, right, in any sport, we have wild cards. We have division winners. We have wild cards. So my solution is to do top 12 in points. If you are top 12 in points, you are automatically locked in. You are automatically locked into the playoffs. No matter if you win or not, it's more than likely top 12 in points is winning. But as we've seen, doesn't happen all the time. And I don't think you should be booted from competing for a championship. There's no reason why the person 27th in points should get a shot to compete for the championship just because they won on the road course, right? Or just because they lucked into a win at Richmond, right? Or Daytona Super Speedway, right? Harrison Burton. So I think top 12 in points, lock into a 16-car chase field. 4 spots are filled by wild card spots, wild card winners. Yeah, you got the bottom there. No more stage costs, new race car. That's just extra wishes. We want to get rid of the next gen car, and stages are But what does this mean? The top 12 in the NASCAR Cup Series point standings at the conclusion of the regular season, like I mentioned, automatically secure a spot in the chase, whether with a win or not. The 13th through 16th wildcard spots are filled by drivers below 12th that have won a race, giving them a chance at championship contention, but not priority over being top 12 in points. And now, as I've looked over this, I don't know if this sounds complicated to people or not, or if it's simple. I mean, I'd like to think of it as a little less complicated than the playoff system we have and whatever's being, suggested in those meetings. The chase will be just as it was before: 10 race strictly on points at a variety of tracks to crown a champion. I think 10 race chase would be incredible nowadays because we could literally put 10 different racetracks in there. That's how fun it could be because of how many different racetracks we race on today. So 13th through 16th wild card spots. It allows you to have a win and in type of situation, but not guaranteed, right? It's more than likely that person 20 millionth in points isn't going to get into the playoffs by just winning a race. So to look at it, this is what this year would have been. You have your top 12. Right? You already see someone up there, Alex Bowman, who almost missed the playoffs. Chris Buescher, who did miss the playoffs. That's your top 12. They are guaranteed into the playoffs by being top 12 on points. I feel like everybody can agree with that. Those 12 guys competing for a championship in a chase, 10-race chase. Perfect. Sounds good. Now, so where it gets interesting. The wild card spots. 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. These guys are drivers that are below 12th, but have won a race. So, being Ross Chastain, being Austin Cindric, being Josh Berry, and Shane Van Gisbergen, and then Austin Dillon. So what this kind of provides here is there's 2 battles going on in the regular season. You have to be top 12, which I believe there was somebody possibly 13, 14, 15 that might have missed it by just a few points, right? Because if somebody surpasses Joey Logano, right, hypothetically, if it was, okay, let's look down here, Ryan Preece, right? Hypothetically, Ryan Preece is in a points battle here with Joey Logano. If he surpasses Logano now bumps down into the wild card position. He has to use a wild card, his win, to be in that wild card. And then that goes ahead and bumps Shane Van Gisbergen out. So these guys down here that have won, they're just hoping stuff above them goes okay. And then you also get this battle, which would have culminated in the final race of the season, ironic enough, between SVG and Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon would not have made the playoffs because he was below SVG in points. With all those wins that SVG piled up on the road courses, he skyrocketed all the way up into the points where he was able to put himself in a top 25 situation to be able to get into the playoffs with that wild card spot. So there's pros and cons to this. It seems, there's parts of it that are more complicated than others, right? Does having 2 battles here complicate things? Maybe. Me personally, I don't think so. I think it's just, it adds more of a natural aspect once you get it down. Will this ever happen? Probably not, because they're not listening and they don't really care. But anyways, I got a few more slides here. Okay, so why this format? The win and end formula is something that NASCAR will more than likely never go away from. With a wild card format, this keeps that thrill with also not taking away from deserving top 12 drivers. With only 4 wild card spots, it leaves room for a potentially very low in points winner to still be left out of the chase. It allows for multiple points battles in the season between 12th and 13th and 16th and 17th if there are enough winners. I have one more slide. We're going to put in this. Why bring the chase back? Oh, yeah. The chase needs to come back. With how diverse the schedule is and how chaotic races are nowadays, deciding a 36 race season-long champion with 3 race intervals is completely unjust. Races will speak for themselves, and 10 races with a set of diverse racetracks will make it for a compelling and more legit championship battle than we've ever seen before. Too much money is invested into the sport by teams, drivers, companies for seasons to just be decided in one race. It's also a big difference between us and stick and ball sports. Teams, coaches, players, right? They're being paid, right, to do this. A lot of times, especially when you go into the Xfinity Series and Truck Series, right? Think about if Corey Haim loses this battle, right? Think about somebody in the Xfinity or Trucks that's really more so paying their way to be there, pays all this money to be super competitive. They lose out because they ran over a nail, or they get taken out by a lap car, lose out on all that money, right? Championship glory, because of what happened there in that final race. So, nonetheless, that's it. That's it, man. That's my official proposal. Probably post this on Instagram at some point. See what the Instagram commenters think about it. But that's my proposition. I think this would be best for the sport. Do I think it happens? No. I think it's a meet in the middle kind of deal where it kind of makes both sides happy, gives us more of a legit chase for the championship with still the thrills of playoffs chase, right? A reset for the final 10 races. As far as other things like will playoff points still be a thing, this and that, that's all TBD. This is just the main subject matter of what I'm trying to promote here. So we'll see. We'll see if it comes back to life. But nonetheless, all we have to really relish in is reality. And the reality is we're still in the playoff system. We're still in the 3-3-3-1 format. Will we be in a 3-3-4 format? I don't know. We're just going to have to find out, probably find out in the next few weeks here. Just have to stay tuned. But this weekend, Kansas Motor Speedway, really excited about that. We got ARCA racing during the weekend, Friday night. And then we also have Xfinity on Saturday, Cup on Sunday. Xfinity Series is back at one of the best races for that type of racing for the Xfinity Series, and one of the best tracks for the Cup Series. So it should be a great weekend of racing. Then we culminate the round of 12 at the Charlotte Roval, and then it's on from there. Round of 8, got 3 races to decide the field for the Final Four in Phoenix. We're coming to the end of the season. Feels like we were just in Speed Weeks. Feel like we just started the show. Now we're already to the end of the 2025 NASCAR season. So, as always, thank you guys for tuning in to the Motor Stardom Show. It's been another fun, informational episode. My throat hurts so much. When you do this by yourself, there's a lot of talking. You feel like you're kind of hosting a radio show by yourself. But this is the Motor Stardom Show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Thanks, everybody on Instagram for commenting, sending in their questions. And thanks, everybody on Instagram for following, man. 38,600 of you have followed the Motor Stardom account. It means a lot. Wouldn't be here without that follow. Wouldn't be going to Charlotte Roval in a few weeks without that following. So excited to get there. But everybody, please enjoy the racing this weekend. We only got a few weekends left. So enjoy the racing while you have it, because it's going to be over. Then we're going to have a 3-month-ish off season. It goes fast every year, but you're still going to miss racing. You're still going to miss it. So enjoy the racing this weekend, guys. Next week, Tuesday night, we'll be right back here. Motor Stardom Show. Going to have some fun guests. A lot of stuff to talk about as we look forward to Charlotte weekend. So thank you all for tuning in. See you next week, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. On your RJ Stars, or look up the Motor Stardom Show. Peace. Shout out to Amir Alexander, as always.